if there's anything else you need, just let Mary know. She'll get it. Okay, let me know if this mic falls, if it doesn't stay where it's supposed to stay, okay? It's fine, Jeff says, okay. The Center for Spiritual Living Boulder, or not Boulder Valley, the entire organization has, as its 2016 global vision, to a world that works for everyone. And our October theme is global transformation through individual transformation, which is just the perfect reading that you picked, because it talked about how in order to change their environment, each person took on that feeling of, ooh, maybe she's the Messiah, maybe he's the Messiah, maybe I'm the Messiah. And so by working with ourselves personally, then we are able to absolutely change the world. Each week, a minister from Centers for Spiritual Living provides some notes that ministers can use, because there's a suggested topic for each Sunday of the year. And this week, it was really great that my friend Sunday Cote did some notes, because Mary and I were at a minister's gathering all week during the week. And so it was kind of full, but it was wonderful. There was time to go to the beach and just kind of soak up a little bit of the sun and the sand. And it was a really busy week, and so I didn't have as much time to work on my sermon as usual. So I really appreciated the fact that my friend Sunday gave us some good notes. And so I want to honor her, because most of the ideas that I'll share with you today are hers. Our talk title for today, and she made this up, okay, is "Don't do anything until I get back." Don't do anything until I get back. Now, you may be curious about where that came from. I know I certainly was. And I'm going to be talking today about evolution, the evolution of us as individuals, and therefore the evolution of humanity. So the talk title comes from a quote by Swami Beyondananda. Now, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Swami Beyondananda, but here he is. He is a very wise and funny guy, and he says that his favorite yoga pose is tongue-in-cheek. So, what he said is, I believe we were created to evolve. Otherwise, Jesus would have said, now don't do a thing until I get back.
Right.
Okay? Now, can you just imagine that? Jesus saying, oh, don't grow, don't change, don't do anything, just wait. If I come back, then we'll work on it. Yeah. So instead, what Jesus told us, and he was referring to his so-called miracles, is greater things than these we can do, and we will do. Now that speaks to me about evolution and possibility, absolute possibility. We were born as individuals and as a species to evolve, to grow, to move into our greatest possibilities. Each one of us. Each one of us. And it's not just Jesus that invited us into our evolution and our possibility. Buddhanet.com said, we believe that each human being is precious and important, that all have the potential to develop into a Buddha, a perfected human being. We believe that humans can outgrow ignorance and irrationality and see things as they really are. We believe that hatred, anger, spite, and jealousy can be replaced by love, patience, generosity, and kindness. We believe that all of this is within the grasp of each person if they make the effort, inspired by the example of Buddha. So we're the first species that we know of to be aware of our own evolution. The first ones that actually know that we have a choice that as we choose our lives, evolution flowers, evolution unfolds. And of course, because of our teaching, the teaching that teaches us that we get to create our reality with our thoughts, with our choices, with our individual behaviors and actions, we know that we're in charge here. We get to make some decisions about how we will move forward as individuals, as communities, and then therefore that absolutely carries over into the world. On a personal level, our spiritual awakening takes us from separation to unity. It takes us from competition to cooperation, and it takes us from self-centeredness to compassion and generosity for all people. But it has to start with us as individuals. So first slide, please. Our personal evolutionary awakening moves us from separation to unity, to wholeness, to oneness, from separation to unity. In the book Spontaneous Evolution by Steve Bierman and Bruce Lipton, they state that there are two ideas or myths that come from the old science, the science that's been around for hundreds of years. Those myths are that everything is separate from everything else, and everyone is separate from everyone else. That unless there's a physical connection, that there isn't any connection at all. The second myth or idea is that our inner experiences don't have any effect at all on anything outside of us. And we know that that's not true. Now, these myths evolved over time, and they started with the Cartesian model. René Descartes, hundreds of years ago, and this is something that I learned this week that I hadn't heard in quite this way before. There was this division between the church that handled things like emotions, mind, spirit, and then there's the body, physical stuff. Well, what I heard this week, what I read, is that that Descartes, René Descartes, the great philosopher and the father of modern, or of medicine, he had to make a deal with the Pope, okay? Because at one time, the Pope, the church, had control of everything. And he said, okay, I really want to explore this physical thing, this physical body. I want to learn how to heal people, but I need to be able to dissect some human courses. And of course, that had been an absolute no-no. And so he made a deal with the Pope that, okay, I won't talk, I won't say anything about spirit, I won't say anything about mind or emotions. If you will just let me do this research, then I'll just stick to physical stuff, and I'll talk as if everything is physical and there's no connection between the two. Well, now that has been the model that has been used for hundreds of years. That's kind of still the model, even though there are some changes taking place, that rules our medical system and how we are taught that it's just physical. We don't need to look at what's going on in your life. Let's just do some tests and see what chemical tests show us. But we know that our connection to each other and our connection to our planet and our connection to spirit is real. In our teaching, we teach, of course, that there's only one, that we are all expressions of the one life, the one thing that we call God or spirit or life or whatever we want to call it. Unique, very unique as I look around, expressions of that one. And other things point to our connection too and our oneness. I mean, there was the Big Bang, you know? At one point, everything, all of the chemicals that make up our body, all of the substances, all of the compounds were just compressed. And then there was the Big Bang and creation happened. And we're connected by water. Now, when you think about water, it's pretty interesting because there's a constant amount of water on the earth. There really hasn't been a big difference in how much water there has been forever. It's just recycled and reused. So if you think about it, probably the water that you're going to drink today was once passed through a dinosaur. Just think about that. And then, of course, from quantum physics, from quantum mechanics, we have the idea of quantum entanglement. And that's the idea that when things are connected, there is always some kind of connection between them. That doesn't just quit. What they did is they did experiments. They took a tiny little photon and they cut it in half to make twin particles. And then, of course, there's this big, elaborate thing that has fiber optic cables. They shot these two twin particles off in different directions, where they effectively ended up 14 miles apart. And then they applied some stimuli to one of them. And what they noticed was that both of them, even though they were 14 miles apart and no longer connected in any physical way, both of them were affected in the same way. So there was still somehow a connection. Now, we don't understand exactly what that is, but we know that we are connected. And the more we learn from science, the more science explores and is able to do experiments, the more we understand our oneness with all that is. The next slide. And our personal evolutionary awakening moves us from competition to cooperation. And in our own lives, we get to look at how we can move from competition to cooperation with ourselves, with our inner selves, with our families, in our workplaces, in our spiritual communities. Because as we change as individuals, as we move to that place of cooperation and peace, that spreads out into the world. Now, a great example of the moving from competition to cooperation is the butterfly, the caterpillar moving into a butterfly. Because what happens is that the caterpillar, makes that chrysalis, goes into that chrysalis, and everything falls apart. And then a new kind of cell starts to emerge. And scientists have called it the imaginal cells, and I just love that term, the imaginal cells. And so at first, the old caterpillar cells just start to attack it. I mean, they're definitely competing for the life essence. And then finally, it can't gobble them all up. It just can't keep up with it, and the imaginal cells keep emerging until finally the old cells that are trying to destroy them don't have a chance. Now, at that point, something amazing happens. The imaginal cells start to clump together. They start to organize. They start to cooperate. And then they turn into some systems that eventually come together as a butterfly. There's a point where all of this has changed so much that there is a realization within this organism that something new has been created. Something new has been created that is different than what was before. And that is the birth of a butterfly. talks about possibility. Because in that mush, in that stuff that's in the chrysalis, I mean, it's a mess, it's chaos. Now, I don't know if any of you can relate to chaos in your world or in our larger world, but from that, we can take the possibility of these imaginal cells and create a world that works for everyone. Next slide, please. And our personal evolutionary awakening moves us from self-centeredness to compassion, to caring for one another and caring for this amazing planet of ours. I love the oneness statement created by the Humanities Team Global Council in May of 2010. Oneness is the energy of love that lies within and connects all of life, enabling us to recognize ourselves in everything. The universe is one being, and we are its cells, all essential and responsible for the well-being of the whole. There was once a pig, and it was rooting around and digging around under an oak tree and eating the acorns. And a wise owl came by and warned the pig, said, you know, you need to be careful, you need to not dig up the roots because that will kill the tree. And the pig said, I don't care about the tree, I just want to eat acorns. Now, we all know that if we don't care about the oak trees, there will not be any acorns. If we do not care for our planet, making choices as individuals that support our planet, we're in big trouble. Thomas Merton said, compassion is the keen awareness of the interdependence of all things. As we awaken spiritually, we remember that we are one with all, and we automatically become more caring and more compassionate. As we remember that we are connected, then we know that as we help and assist and serve others, you know, in a way, we're just serving a part of ourselves. When we open our eyes and minds and hearts, our natural response is to care for each other. And when we do, it feels good. And then when we feel good, we expand even more, being even more generous, even more caring, even more considerate of those who are around us. Ernest Holmes wrote, the furtherance of evolution depends upon our ability to sense a unity with nature and her forces. When the knowledge of this unity comes to all, the tread of armies will cease, and the bugle call will echo the soft notes of brotherly love. The master teacher Jesus didn't say, don't do anything until I get back. He told us that we are capable of doing great things. He told us to forgive, to shine our light, to love one another, and to care for each other. And I think that if the spiritual masters were here, I think that if Jesus and Buddha and Moses and Muhammad and all of the other spiritual masters were here, that's what they would tell us. Love one another. Find a way to bring peace into your day, into your week, into your life. And absolutely know that as you do that, as we experience that individual transformation, the world is transformed, moving us closer and closer and finally into a world that works for everyone. I invite practitioners to stand with me in high consciousness as we move into prayer. recognizing that one life, recognizing the one love, the one force, the one creative power. I remember that everything I have ever seen, everything I have ever experienced is an expression of what I call the divine. It is an outpicturing that comes first as an idea in the mind of God. And then it becomes reality. But that's the way creation works. There is this one power, one source that makes everything out of itself. Nothing else is needed, nothing else is necessary. And each one of us is made from that nature, from the substance, from the idea, from the very source of God. And because we are one with it, we have also inherited the creative nature that allows us to call forth in our lives what we want to create, what we are willing to accept, what we are willing to step into, what we are willing to act on. And that part of God that we call the law, that has all the stuff and all the know-how and can make anything into manifestation, that responds to our thoughts, to our actions, to our intentions and our beliefs. And so knowing that, I know that we are powerful. I know that as we go forth this week, we are blessed. We have reminders all over the place that we are able to move through our lives in peace. Now, whatever tools we need for that, I declare are provided with ease and grace. Anything that needs to come to us in the form of information or support or resources, I declare to be present now, available for us to walk into, to open our arms to accept, to fully embrace, to integrate, and then to share. And so I declare that there is individual transformation in the air, and that the result of that is a global transformation, affecting people all over the world, changing intentions, creating desires, moving into possibility. And because I know that everything has been provided that is needed for that this system of evolution is in place and that we are a part of it, I can simply be grateful, grateful, grateful. And in my gratitude, I let this all go. I let God do what God does so well, which is bring things into manifestation. And so rejoicing and giving thanks, I let it be, and so it is.
The sun sets a velvet shadow, crimson in the sky. Craters turn into canyons, and mountains stretch high, and stars are sparks of silver, like an echo in the night. Someone's holding their hand out, and someone else is reaching to hold it tight. When there is need, might be the daughter of the sun. You might be someone just passing through. It's not just the rituals we believe in. It's the roads we travel